Joe Biden released a statement responding to Trump. This is about the protests that are still ongoing in some cities across the country. And what he said here caused a bit of a stir. You'll see why, and if you don't, I'll explain it to you. But here's what he said. I have said from the outset of recent protests that there is no place for violence and destruction of property. Peaceful protesters should be protected, and arsonists and anarchists should be prosecuted. And local law enforcement can do that. When President Obama and I were in office, we protected federal property. We were able to do it without the Department of Homeland Security turning into a private militia. And it can be done today, but that wouldn't help Trump's political interests. He's determined to stroke division and chaos. It's not good for the country, but Donald Trump doesn't care. His campaign is failing, and he is looking for a political lifeline. This isn't about law and order. It's about political strategy to revive a failing campaign. Every instinct Trump has is to add fuel to the fire. That's the last thing we need. We need leadership to calm the waters and lower the temperature. That's how we will restore peace in the streets. Okay, so I think that last part is inarguably correct, that Trump does. And I think this is one of the reasons why he's polling so abysmally now, is that in a time of crisis, people want a steady hand of leadership. And he's fundamentally the opposite. He's a bomb thrower, and he's divisive, and he does add fuel to the fire. Even when he tries to do the opposite, he still somehow ends up adding fuel to the fire. He doesn't know what to do other than to feed that Fox News, One America News Network line of argument, and that line of argument is that the left is evil, the left are anarchists, looters, and rioters, they hate law and order, they hate America, Biden's a far-left, Antifa, Marxist puppet. This is all he knows how to push now, is that argument. And that argument rings untrue to everybody who's not already in that tiny far-right bubble. Everybody knows that Joe Biden is not some sort of Antifa, Marxist puppet, but this is the argument he's been going with. And Trump only knows how to exacerbate the problem. The fact that he's sending federal troops anywhere is definitely breathing more life into the protests. For sure. If he didn't send them anywhere, you'd probably be in a situation where they've almost totally died down now. But he's a lightning rod, and that's what he does. Okay, so that's the part that's correct. But did you catch the part that's, leading people to roll their eyes and say, Jesus Christ, these are the options we have, Trump or this idiot? I'm going to read it one more time from the beginning. Here's what he said. I have said from the outset of recent protests that there is no place for violence and destruction of property. Okay, so far so good. No problem there. Peaceful protesters should be protected. Good. Then he says, and arsonists and anarchists should be prosecuted. Now, there's nothing wrong at all with saying, prosecute arsonists. If you're setting stuff on fire, yeah, that's a crime, and it should be a crime. You shouldn't get away with that. Duh, in my opinion. I think that's pretty obvious. But he said anarchists should be prosecuted. The kindest I could be to Joe Biden in this scenario is to say that maybe he's using the term anarchism or anarchist as a verb, and it's synonymous in his mind with looting and rioting, which are illegal. Maybe that's what he's thinking, but based off the plain-faced reading of what he said here, the argument is lock up anarchists for being anarchists. But anarchism is a political philosophy. You can't lock somebody up for having a political philosophy, even if it's one that you view as extreme. That's deeply unconstitutional, and that's literally it's a thought crime. It's like if somebody said, well, we got to arrest all the fascists. Now, fascism is evil and wrong and terrible and bad, of course. But you can't arrest somebody just for having that ideology. That's not a thing. They have to actually commit a crime for you to arrest them. And this goes for anything. You fill in the blank with whatever ideology, you might like or dislike, or it sounds extreme. You could say it with communists. If a far-right president was like, we got to lock up all the commies. Whoa. You don't have to like communism, but you can't just willy-nilly lock people up for having a political philosophy and ideology. And anarchism is a school of political thought. You might not agree with it. I'm sure Biden doesn't know much about it. But, like Noam Chomsky one of the world's top living intellectuals. He wrote a book on anarcho-syndicalism. It's a form of anarchism. It's like a radical communitarian form of anarchism. So there's this, caricatured view of anarchism as like it's just total mayhem and chaos, and that's kind of how it's used in casual conversation among some people. And I think that's how Biden is trying to use it here. But you can't say we're going to lock up anarchists, like anarchists should be prosecuted for being anarchist, which is effectively what he's saying. That's insane, and that's deeply authoritarian. Again, I have no problem with sure, we should prosecute the arsonists, that's fine. I have no problem with you got to go after people who do any kind of violence. I get it. Of course. You're not going to have a presidential candidate running who's like, I'm in favor of violence. I'm in favor of property violence. I think this is actually a good thing. Nobody's going to say it doesn't matter. If Bernie Sanders was the nominee, he would say the same thing. He'd be like, no, I'm not in favor of any kind of violence. But to say we're going to lock up anarchists, no, they're right to point this out and say, that's authoritarian. You can't just lock somebody up for having an ideology that you don't agree with. Now, again, the kindest interpretation I could give him is that when he says anarchist, in his mind, he's using that interchangeably with like looter/rioter. That's what I think he means. But you got to not say this ever again and be clear about what you mean, because a plain-faced reading of this, people are not wrong to interpret that as saying, I'm going to crack down on an ideology that I don't agree with. Here are your options. Trump or Biden. Good luck.